we are recording. This is my review and reflect for week 6 at Dev Bootcamp. And this is the last week of Ruby before we move on to JavaScript for phase 0. But let's get rolling on these questions. The first question is, what are classes? Be sure to define the following terms in your explanation and describe the relationships between them. Class, state, behavior, instance variable, and instance method. So let's start with that first question. What is a class? If you have been coding with Ruby, you've already been working with classes without realizing it. The classes you'll have been working with, you'll recognize the terms though. String is a class. It's specifically any type of text. Integer is a class. It's your integers. Booleans is a class, true or false. Similarly, arrays are a class, hashes are a class. And what makes them classes is there are specific methods you can call upon them. And your methods that you have for strings are going to be different from the methods you can call on integers because they're different classes. Now, there's an additional step of classes in Ruby, and this is what's cool in what we've been learning this week, is you can actually create your own classes by simply writing class and then an uppercase word and then end. And in there, you're writing the whole description about the class. And I guess like each class is a set of behaviors and attributes. So a class in the real world might be like, you could say dogs are a class. And then there's another term, they don't have it here, but instance. An instance would be a specific dog. Whereas the class overall of all those dogs, including cute little Spot or whatever you call your dog, dogs would be the class. And so what would you expect a dog to do? Well, and actually I'll just start talking about the other terms and keep tying it to the whole idea of a dog. So the state is it's like the summation of the attributes of an animal or of your class. So like all the variables of information you would store. So with a dog, you might have like fur color, the volume of their bark, how waggy their tail is. These are all attributes. And another term here they want me to talk about, instance variables. The notation for it in Ruby, you'll have the @ symbol and then the name of the variable. And those are variables you store for like each instance of the class you generate. But the state is like the entire list of attributes, if that's how you want to think it. And behavior, so they have behavior and instant methods here, which also link. Behaviors are what you expect the dog to do. You expect the dog to bark at the postman. You expect the dog to chase the mailman, or chase the cat rather. He could chase the mailman too. You expect the dog to like beg for food when you're eating at the table and give you like the really big eyes, like please. These are all behaviors. And as I mentioned before, like when you deal with strings and integers, there are specific behaviors you expect for those classes, and those are your methods that you can call up. So the instance method is a method you call on a specific instance, which again, an instance would be your dog Spot. It's a specific dog, but the method is the attribute you call them to do. So the next question is, what are attributes? And we've already started talking about this. I think a nice way to think about how attributes relate to instance variables is that your attributes, like if you go to get your driver's license, there's an application you're going to have to fill out. And the attributes would be like, what is your name? What is your age? What is your hair color? What is your eye color? The variables would be what you actually wrote in for that information. Which it's funny, like the articles that talk about instance variable, they just say it's like, oh yeah, it's the @ symbol and the name of the variable. But I suspect it's not just that. I think when you talk about the instance variable, you're also referring to what's being stored in the variable. whereas the attribute is like that specific uh, attribute that you're talking about. I just defined the word using itself. It's your height. So the instance variable wouldn't necessarily just be that at symbol, like it's what's storing, but the attribute would just be like at height. The next question is, give an example of a real world object and describe how you might assign its attributes if you were to design a class to represent that object. I've already kind of been doing this. Okay, my real world object is going to be a dog. And how would I assign its attributes? Okay, I'd probably put in ears, like the color of its fur, the how happy is it to see people. These are the types of attributes I would store of it. And the next question is, what is the purpose of the initialize method? When does it run? So initialize, since we're already talking about like driver's license and all that, it's kind of got me in the mindset. Initialize is like your first day at a new job. And they make you got to fill out all your new paperwork, like 20 pages. You're handed your company shirt and your company pen. The initialize method is very unique. And what it does is when you put it inside a class, the initialize method says when you create a new instance of this class, which how would you notate that? If we're going with the dog example, you would write spot equals dog.new, but just the raw coding is variable name equals class.new. And when you do that, the initialize method would be like, okay, here's the check work of everything it needs to do. So like, what's the dog's height? Boom, store that in height. What's the dog's fur color? Store that in the fur color. And you write in, you're like, these are the things that are going to happen with this new instance when it's created. The other part of the question is, when does it run? It runs when you initiate that new class or that new instance of the class. So again, it's the coding I talked about. Instance equals class.new. But it initializes when you do that, which is why it's called initialize, when you initiate. The next question we have are, what are modules? So modules, they're not classes. Let's start with that. Modules are not classes. However, modules are a storing of classes and methods and constants that you would potentially want to use in a wide variety of programs. That's the next question. What are different ways you can use a module? So if you built, well, I was reading one article that talked about like if you built a program that does trigonometry, you might have a trig module. But then one of the problems is one of the methods you have in there might be called sine. And then if you had another module that had to do with different types of angels and demons, you might have another class. Instead of sine, it'd be called sin, but it'd be spelled the same way, S-I-N. So if you just put both of those in the same document without any kind of segregation, you would have two different definitions for the same method. And that would script the program. So with modules, it keeps it regimented. It's like a grouping of different methods and constants, like I said, and classes. But it allows you to import it into a wide variety of projects without that then interfering with code from either other modules or the main source of each project it's working on. So what are different ways you can use a module? It's like I'm saying, if there's like core behaviors you expect to use again and again and again, and core methods, your modules are a way of organizing them where you can import it into projects without overlapping with other people's code and causing conflicts. So it's really nice if you just have reusable code that yes, I am going to keep using this. And that is all the questions for this week. So it's been great getting through Ruby. Big assessments next week. I will say these last 2 weeks have been pretty intense. But I guess that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching and have a great evening. Later.